Alright, hello everybody. Got a great lesson today. This is one of my most favorite topics to teach about, the French Revolution. I'm pretty confident that I can say it's the most important event in European history, if not world history. It was a huge change that dramatically affected the way people work on planet Earth. So before I actually get into today's lesson, I'm going to show you that we've got a document for you today. It's called the Declaration of the Rights of Man. This document is going to be referenced in the Perezi. And there's some questions here. Not a lot of questions, only 5. But these questions directly relate to the Enlightenment lesson we did last time. So you are going to have to reference what you learned from the various political thinkers in my last video. If you need to do any kind of review on that, should be in your notes. So good luck with that. All right. But anyway, with this, let's get into the French Revolution. Vive la France! Long live the French people. All right, right here, there's a picture of a girl who's clearly getting a little frisky there. A kid with 2 guns walking over a bunch of dead folks. This is kind of the symbol of what the French Revolution is all about. It's the people, men, women, children, everybody, rising up against their government because you can't treat people bad forever. Okay, and then this thing right here. Hopefully you have at least seen this thing before. This is going to get talked about a lot the next lesson. It's called the guillotine. Cuts off people's heads in a very efficient way. And then this dude, Napoleon Bonaparte, he's going to be the last lesson of the series. He's a pretty important dude in history as well, and we're going to talk a lot about him. All right, so today's lessons. Why did the French Revolution start? Why did each estate, or what did each estate want at the estate's general meeting? And how does the Declaration of the Rights of Man reflect American values? So these are what hopefully you will get today, and this date is definitely wrong. We are ahead of that. So here we go. Back in the absolutionism lesson, I talked to you about Louis the 14th, and today I'm going to talk to you about Louis the 16th. Even though he's only 2 Louis away, he's the great-grandson of your favorite Sun King. And naturally, Louis was living the same exact life as his great-granddad, just spending money on stupid things, constantly remodeling the Palace of Versailles, and he was just living the beyond rich, beyond fancy life that you could imagine. He was so out of whack with how money worked and how, I don't know, caring for the people of France was supposed to work. He actually said that Versailles was too old, and he wanted to build a new Palace of Versailles that would be even double the size, because he wanted to, like, I don't know, differentiate himself from his great-granddad. Louis the 16th was famous for just being an idiot, too. Like, everybody wanted to be his friend because he was the king, but a lot of people wrote in their journals like, this guy's kind of dumb. And this guy doesn't understand that if he's constantly spending this money, and if the peasant people of France don't get any benefits, they're going to get pissed off. But he didn't hear any of their warnings, and he's going to suffer for it. So let's get back into the history here. So Louis the 16th said, I want more money from the people of France. Okay? He was already spending 1/4 of all the money in France. All right? Imagine if there was somebody in the United States who was like, who was Steve Jobs plus Jeff Bezos plus Bill Gates, like somebody who just, dominated the entire economy of the country. Well, that's what Louis XVI was. And he called a meeting for representatives from all over the country in the year 1789. And this meeting hadn't happened for 200 years. And he saw the meeting as kind of a formality, but his agenda for the meeting was, I want the people of France to pay me more money because I want another palace. Because I'm the king and I can do whatever the heck I want. But this was a different world than 200 years ago. because all these Enlightenment ideas were spreading around the people of France. And also, 13 years before, America did their whole thing with their independence from Britain, and they won. So the people of France, they're going to go to that meeting, but they're going to have a very different agenda than allowing the king to get more money. So anyways, check it out. Here's some of the many styles of Louis XVI. And then there's some of his fancy court people. And once again, this was Louis XVI's bedroom in Versailles, all gold-plated, mind you. This wasn't good enough for him. He wanted a bigger palace. So, Louis XVI and his wife Marie Antoinette. Oh yeah, I already mentioned this in the previous slide. But let's talk about Marie Antoinette. Her last name was Habsburg, so hopefully that gets some images in your mind. She was from Austria, and Marie was just like her husband. She spent stupid money on everything. And oh yeah, here's some of the statistics about it. Oh man, they did these deals where they said, hey, rich people of France, if you give us $1 million now, you never have to pay taxes again for the rest of your life, and your children, grandchildren, all your ancestors never have to pay taxes again too. So virtually everybody who was paying for this lavish lifestyle was the poor people of France. And also, they were getting a lot of taxes still from slave labor. Slavery was slowly going out the door at this time, though. But yeah, the people of France were not about to pay more money for Louis and Marie. They were just, what is this, 6% of the entire budget was their sort of like personal fun budget. And then, yeah, the civil administration, fiscal administration, a lot of this was done in Versailles. Wars, 25%, debts, 43%. 4% of the government was the only thing that actually went to helping people. So there was almost nothing being done, and people were living in a very, very bad situation. So, all right, let's check it out. All right, so at this meeting, there were 3 groups that attended. The first group was called the First Estate, and they were sort of everybody involved in the Roman Catholic Church, the clergy. They were very wealthy. They paid no taxes. They were totally in the king's pocket, and they were just bad kind of Christian people. But they said, yes, we want to give the king more money because it's not going to come from us because we don't pay taxes. So the clergy was on his side. The Second Estate, those people were sort of like the nobles, also the very wealthy. A lot of these people were like Louis XVI's best friends. They had already done the whole pay $1 million once, never pay taxes again. But they actually came to this meeting and they had an agenda too. They wanted to sort of create what England had with something like a parliament where they could share the power equally. They didn't get that, but they were sort of okay with the king too. And what's screwed up is the clergy was maybe, 1% of the population. The nobles were maybe 6% of the population. And the Third Estate was 93% of the population. Okay? The Third Estate representatives was representing the middle and the poor classes of France. And another name for them is bourgeoisie. That's this weird word right here. Bourgeoisie. But it's pronounced bourgeoisie. We'll see this word a couple times. The Third Estate came there with a very important agenda saying, yo, we don't want to pay for your fancy palaces anymore, and we want a real democracy like they have in the United States. Well, even though they were 90% of the population, each one of these estates was considered to have equal voting power. So throughout this whole meeting, the First Estate and the Second Estate allied together. They said yes to whatever the king said. And the Third Estate was like screaming their butts off, like, whoa, like, we're most of the population. You guys shouldn't be able to dictate, the rules of this country. But Louis XVI sort of like, blew him off, said, I'm the king, deal with it. Y'all got to pay me more money. And this meeting, went on with the First and the Second Estate totally agreeing with the king, and the Third Estate getting nothing. And the representatives from the Third Estate were getting really, really pissed off. So this is where, history's going to start happening here. All right, let's go ahead and start bouncing through these pictures. So here we go. This is the meeting right here. There's Louis XVI on his throne, all the various representatives from the estates, and the third estate guys super pissed off. And yeah, it consists of the clergy. Oh, only 2% of the population. That was like 6. But yeah, the third estate paid pretty much everything, and they were very upset. Here's some more stuff right here. So, the population, 98% is the third estate. Wow, I was way off. Land ownership, the second estate owns most land, and the third estate paid all the taxes. What if we lived in the United States where rich people paid no taxes, and poor people had to pay everything for the government? That would really suck. All right, let's check out this picture right here. Yeah, all these guys represent one of the estates. Here's the first estate, the clergy, the second estate, the nobles, and the third estate trying to get out of their chains and pick up a gun. And these guys are freaking out. Why? Because the third estate is 98% of the freaking population. You know, even though these guys have the money, if 98% of the people of the country want you to die, they can do that. And this one too, the third estate woman right here, getting ridden on by the first and the second estate. Her back's about to break. She doesn't want to deal with it anymore. So, important event happened. The representatives of the third estate were sick of that meeting. The meeting went on for like a week in Versailles. So they said, screw it, we're going into the tennis court next door. There were actually a couple tennis courts in the Palace of Versailles, because, you know, why not have a tennis court in your house? You're the King of France. They got into that tennis court, and they did something called the tennis court oath, where they all said, screw this meeting, screw the king, screw the first and the second estate. We are the government of the people of France. They renamed themselves the National Assembly, and they wrote a document together called the Declaration of the Rights of Man and Citizen. And that's the document you're going to read in class today. And they said, look, we will work with the king and the other states if we form a government and have proper representation and sort of have what they have in the United States. France really thought, these guys thought that the United States of America, that brand new country, did something pretty great. And they said, we're ready to fight to do it too. They came up with this motto, Liberté, Égalité, Fraternité, which translates to liberty, equality, and friendship. And that's still the motto of France to this day. So, good job, Frenchmen. But let's see. As you could imagine, Louis XVI was kind of pissed off that they made all these demands of him. So Louis is about to call in the army to arrest all of these guys. And this is where the story starts going into the violence road here. All right, so check it out. Here they are making a tennis court oath. This man right here, his name is Maximilien Robespierre. He was one of the big authors of the document. We'll talk about him next time. And then here's all these guys vowing to fight France if necessary. So, the news of the National Assembly really excited all of the poor people of France. Their representatives were showing how pissed off they were at the king. They refused to give the king more money. The people of France agreed with them, believed them. And when they heard that Louis was going to arrest all those guys, the people of especially Paris, but just all over France, said, F this. We are not going to let the king and his army continue to tax us, to treat us terribly, to live their incredible lives of luxury. We want a free government that works for the people. So the people of France formed a mob, and they marched on this sort of military castle in the middle of France. And this is where the French military kept a lot of their weapons. This castle is called the Bastille, which is the name of a very good popular music group today. They marched on the Bastille and demanded that the soldiers open, the doors to this gun-keeping fortress. And the soldiers said no. So the people attacked the soldiers and killed them, went into the Bastille, took a whole bunch of guns, and then marched to Versailles to defend the new National Assembly. This event happened on July 14th, 1789, and it is still to this day a holiday in France that's done with fireworks and barbecues, and you have the day off work. It's basically they copied July 4th in the United States and just made it July 14th. So that's pretty cool. And they call it Bastille Day instead of Independence Day. Interesting. So, cool. All right, let's check it out. So, these Frenchies are fighting their way into the Bastille and saving their people. So, yes, as I mentioned, Louis XVI called in the army to put down this revolution going on in Paris and to arrest the National Assembly. But when the army got its way to Versailles, a lot of those soldiers were poor guys from the Third Estate. And when they saw their friends in Paris being like, yo, Louis being a douche, we gotta arrest him instead, the army joined with the people. And so they had this union of this mob of gun-wielding Parisians and the French army. They walked into Versailles, and Louis is like, oh, the army is here. You go and arrest everybody. The army's like, actually, we're going to arrest you. So Louis and Marie famously were arrested in the first few days of the French Revolution. And Marie Antoinette especially was so confused as to why the people were so mad. And a famous line that maybe she did or didn't say is when this mob of people got their way to Versailles and they, said, we're here to arrest the king and queen because we're starving peasants and, you take all our money and you don't treat us right. One of Marie's attendants said, Marie, the people are here to arrest you. Marie asked, well, why are they so mad? And, her attendant said, well, my queen, it's because they're hungry. And she says, oh, they can have some of my cake. It's like, really? Like, really, you crazy lady? Like, one slice of cake is going to make a mob of 10,000 people happy? She was totally disconnected in her rich woman world, and she's going to learn a pretty bad lesson. So that's a famous line by Marie. There they are at Versailles, going in there, stealing a bunch of stuff from the king and queen, and famously arresting them as well, and the people of France taking command. All right, so the National Assembly arrests the king, and they say, all right, we are the official government now. We're going to start, having elections and having, bills of rights and all that stuff. So they really did make a new government in France. They granted suffrage, the right to vote, to all male citizens. So they said everybody can vote. It doesn't matter what estate you used to be a part of. Sorry, ladies, you're not included yet, but you'll get there. And this new government set out to erase all traces of what the old monarchy did. They also sort of arrested Louis and Marie they arrested the prince and princess of France. They took over the property of some of the nobles and the clergy. They said that religious people have to pay taxes again. Rich people have to pay taxes again. They really wanted to undo these things that were really oppressing the poor peoples of France. And another thing you should really remember is Marie Antoinette's last name was Habsburg. So she did have a big family connection all over the rest of Europe. And, the other countries of Europe see all this happening. They're going to get pretty freaked out when these poor people in France fight against their king and queen. It could, set a bad precedent that might spread to their country as well. All right, so let's start checking this stuff out. Here they are fighting back, and then, voting for new people. And what do we got here? Liberté, égalité, fraternité. So that's what France is about. All right, and yes, the king and queen sent messages to their distant relatives all over Europe saying, yo, the people of France have arrested us. Please, break us out of jail. And if you don't, these evil ideas of poor people being treated equally could spread to your country too. So y'all got to put this down. So every single country in Europe almost sent armies to invade France. And the people of France said, well, we've got to call for allies. They called up the United States. We were this brand new country. We had just freshly fought against England. And we didn't help them, actually. We said no. It's because we were still kind of in recovery mode from the revolution. George Washington was president at the time. There's actually this really good video clip I'll show you that George Washington explains why we aren't going to help France in the revolution. Kind of sucked for them. So anyway, the French guys are getting attacked from everywhere, especially Spain, Germany. All these countries are attacking them. But the French people, everybody joined the army. Okay, like there are these stories of these German troops marching into France. And they were getting attacked by women and children. That was unheard of back then. Like, war was supposed to be a man's game. But now you've got French kids with guns, like murdering German guys. And they really freaked them out so much, a lot of them retreated. The French people successfully defended their country. They did it because there's this concept called nationalism that was really created in the French Revolution. The people of France felt like they had something to fight for. They loved the idea of democracy. They loved the idea of getting rid of this king who was abusing them and taking all of the government's money and not treating them fairly. So when you actually do have something you're willing to die for, you are a way better soldier than some soldier just getting a paycheck could ever be. They created their new flag, the tricolor flag. The colors are, of course, blue, white, and red. I wonder what country they referenced. And they wrote a national anthem, which is still their national anthem today, a song called La Marseillaise. We're going to listen to and do a document about this song, I think in 2 days from now. I don't want to double document you today. But La Marseillaise, it definitely talks a lot about how the French people are there to fight for what they believe in. Good job, France. Make me proud. Okay, so let's start bouncing through this. You got the tricolor flag right here. And you got the song La Marseillaise. We're going to hear this later. And the French people fighting all these countries that are trying to save the King Louis. Through amazing luck, the French people beat every army that attacked them. They were under attack from all sides, and they won all sides. So the other countries just kind of gave up and instead focused their militaries to put down their own peasants and their own poor people to make sure the revolution doesn't spread to them. But the next topic I'll talk about when I come back is sort of what happens next in the French Revolution. And you would think that, the people of France, they've successfully fought off these countries that are attacking them. They've got the king and queen in jail. They're creating this brand new democracy on Enlightenment principles. So what do they have to do? The first thing is they've got to have a proper election and elect a president. What if they elect a bad president? And that's where we'll go next time. All right, so y'all got a document to do, the Declaration of Rights of Man and Citizen. So get on that, and I'll see you next time. Peace out.